Hello. This presentation is going to go over a few things about AWS D1.1 WPSs. Not going to cover everything, but just a few high points that you can maybe talk about or think about. My name is Gerald Austin. I've been a CWI since '90. I actually got started inspecting before I became a CWI, doing work on boilers and pressure vessels and a little bit in the Navy. Just because I've been doing this for 40 years does not mean I'm not going to make mistakes and that I know everything that there is to know about it. But what little bit I know, I'm sure enough glad to share with you. If you ever got any welding related questions, feel free to give me a call. My cell phone number is there. Text me. I'm not going to answer the phone obviously at 2 o'clock in the morning, but I'll probably look at my messages first thing. We've got a website, weldingclassroom.org, that I use for trying to get some training information out there to people. This video is just one of the things that I've tried. I want you to understand that, again, this is a pretty big subject, but I'm going to hit on a couple of key points that maybe some folks are not familiar with. One other thing I forgot to add down at the very bottom of the slide there is what would inspectors who inspect from the office do if there weren't WPSs to review? How would we be able to flex our mighty welding muscle without sitting in there and picking apart your WPS that you gave us? Okay, so gotta have our existence justified sometimes. I'm just kidding. It is an important process, but on the other hand of it, I've seen a lot of inspectors, or I've been around a few inspectors that did the majority of their inspecting by reviewing documentation. On AWS D1.1, Clause 3 is the clause that addresses pre-qualified WPSs, ones that you can just write up. We're not going to go over the rules and how to do it, but that's where that's mentioned. In Clause 4, there's parts in there for qualification of welding procedures by testing. But WPSs are mentioned in other places in D1.1. One of the very first places that we should all be aware of is the contractor's responsibility in 1.4.2. I'm not going to read it out to you. Look on the slide, see what it says. But that gets you down to the point where if you were to be inspecting a job, there better be a WPS there. If you don't understand what that says, feel free to send me a message. But to me, it's pretty black and white. No need me reading it out loud to you. So here's another place where AWS D1.1 mentions having a WPS, and this is in the case where notch toughness requirements apply. Us as inspectors, we don't decide when the notch toughness requirements apply. Okay, and make sure you understand that. But if they do apply, there's going to be some requirements specified, number of foot-pounds at certain temperature absorbed for the WPS qualification, that kind of stuff. Be aware of it and see that it's required. And if you want to learn more about it, you can look at Part D of the Clause 4 there on page 118 that I've got referenced. So we're still in Clause 2, which talks about design requirements. If you look at paragraph 2.4.1.3, there's reference to a WPS again. Okay, you should understand what that means. Not going to read it out loud to you again. But realize that the code requires WPSs for any welding that you're doing, and sometimes there's a reason why. Minimum size of PJP groove welds. There you go. So now we've jumped over to Clause 5, which is the fabrication clause. And here's a couple of places where WPSs are mentioned. Talks about the shielding gas requirements, percentage you got to be in accordance with WPS. WPS variables shall be in conformance with the written WPS. Here's a good one. Notice what it says about the tack welders and operators informed in the proper use of the WPS. Doesn't tell you how they got to be informed, but they've got to be informed in it. And plus it has to be readily available. So when I go out to a job site and I say, let me see your WPS, well, it's not here, it's at the office. Well, that is not readily available. Do I reject the entire job? No, but that might very well go in the report and state that the fabricator or the contractor did not have a WPS available as indicated in paragraph 5.5 of D1.1. Preheat interpass temperature. Okay, that should be as indicated on the WPS. So there in Clause 5, there are some requirements to have a WPS and to follow it. So here's one that's a little bit misunderstood or possibly not even enforced a whole lot. Talks about general requirements, tack welds, construction aids. That's going to be your lift and lugs, which is often, in my opinion, the most important weld that's on many job sites. Made with qualified or pre-qualified WPS and by qualified personnel. You got to have a WPS, got to be qualified for the joint, and you've got to have a welder that's qualified to make the weld. One without the other doesn't comply with the code. They both got to be in place. So here's one that we kind of changed the job function of the drill press operator that I've seen in a couple of fabricators. Okay, you take a look at the sub-paragraphs that are under 5.25.5 and see exactly what it says. But understand that eventually it gets to the point you've got to have a WPS, and of course the welder's got to be qualified. So this slide was made up for presentation in a class that I'm teaching, and at this point you need to be able to do the same thing. You need to look at those specific paragraphs and read them and see what they say, and see how that applies to our thought about having to have a WPS when we do any welding. Again, the code book is thick. There's many more requirements than just having a WPS. You need to be familiar with them. Just understand that it's a lifelong learning process being a weld inspector, in my opinion. Keep at it. Hopefully I was able to help you out a little bit. Now, AWS D1.1 does talk about WPSs and other clauses after clause 6, but that's all I'm going to go through for right now. Take a look through the rest of the code. If you get an opportunity to purchase a PDF version of D1.1, one of the really powerful things about it is that ability to search through it for specific terms and definitions and see how many times they occur. It's kind of a pain the way AWS does it, but it's, in my opinion, it could very well be worth it. I don't have all my codes purchased like that, but that's my preferred way, even though I've got to put up with their licensing and moving them on a computer and stuff like that. It's still kind of convenient to be able to search through there and see what it says about certain topics really quickly. Y'all have a good day. Again, feel free to contact me if you've got any questions, make some comments on this. This is one of my very first videos doing any welding related training, presentation stuff, so I welcome your comments. Be gentle, because you know how welders are. We're really, really sensitive about what other people say. So keep that in mind. Try not to be ugly. You know my feelings can get hurt real easily. Y'all have a good day.